Hey guys, Problem1701 here, and to kind of celebrate the release of Galaxy 4, the first Doctor story we've gotten in a long time, since like 2013 with the 10th Planet, 2014, whenever 10th Planet came out. To kind of celebrate that release, I wanted to talk about the first Doctor. Plus, I've seen a little more of the first Doctor since I think the last time I ranked his stories. So today we're going to be ranking the first Doctor stories I've seen. Now, most of you who watch my channel, you know the first Doctor really is kind of the gap in my Doctor Who knowledge. I've been a Doctor Who fan all my life, and I've seen all of Modern Who and most of Classic Who, but the one that I really am lacking on is the first Doctor. I've only seen 9 of his stories now. And I figured since I'd seen a couple more, plus since I had recently purchased Unearthly Child in Dallas and got to rewatch them again for the first time in like 12 or 13 years, I figured it was, now that I've seen them with fresh eyes, it would be good to re-rank them as well. So we're going to be looking at the 9 stories I've seen from the first Doctor, from worst to best. And at the bottom of the list is the Gunfighters. This is the only bad first Doctor story I've ever seen, I think. It is just atrociously awful. It really is one of those situations where you're like, we're missing so much of Dalek's master plan, the Savages, Galaxy 4, the Massacre, but we have all 4 episodes of the Gunfighters surviving. And you just think that there's some supernatural force out there that has a sense of humor. Whichever deity you believe in. Has some kind of sense of humor. It's the same thing with the Dominators. We're missing so much of Troughton's good stuff, but we have all 5 episodes of the Dominators. It's just so bad, especially that Ballad of Johnny Ringo song that they are very, very proud of, and to let you know they're proud of it, they play it over and over and over and over again. It plays more times than the Mortal Kombat song played in the Mortal Kombat movie. They're very proud of it. Couple things I like about the Gunfighters. I did like the guy playing Doc Holliday. I really enjoyed him a lot in it. I actually like Dodo in the story. Dodo actually has some stuff to do. That's nice as well. But for the most part, the terrible southern accents to someone who is from the States and was born and raised in the South, it's just to listen to. And again, that song is very irksome. It needs a little warning light that flashes right before it plays. But considering how often it plays, the light would always be flashing. And the final shootout's actually pretty decent. I'll admit that. I did kind of like the shootout in it. But the idea that the first Doctor would go all the way to the Wild West to have his tooth done, I think I'd want to go somewhere a little more modern. It's a silly premise. But he can't really steer it anyway, so what can you say? Number 8 is Mission to the Unknown. I have seen the recreation of it, the college recreation of it that was done a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really neat. I thought it was a very, well, I would say faithful recreation. I haven't seen the original, so it's hard to say. But it looks like a 60s production. I think they did a really good job of that there. I'm really fascinated by the one creatures who, if they prick you, first you go insane, and then you turn into another one of those creatures. That's fascinating. I absolutely love that creature design where it looks just kind of like a mobile cactus. The transformation sequence for it is really, really neat. It's hard to rank it higher just because I haven't seen Master Plan, and I know this is basically a prequel to it, so it's really hard to judge it in its full context, but just as an episode itself, I really enjoyed it. Next on the list is Edge of Destruction, which overall I don't think I liked quite as much as the Mission to the Unknown short, but I love the ending of Edge of Destruction. Edge of Destruction is just a 2-parter. I find it a little tedious to get through and a little uninteresting, but I loved the ending so much, with Hartnell really being, I think, truly nice and kind for the first time, with him talking to Susan, and I do think your old grandfather's going a bit around the bend. I love that. And then watching him be nice to Barbara and walk out with her arm in arm, I really enjoyed that, and so it really brings the story up in my estimates. Number 6 on the list is An Unearthly Child. That first episode is just so good. Much like Spearhead from Space and Rose later, it does a really good job of setting up everything it needs to set up and introducing you to the concepts of the show. And it's a nice slow burn as it slowly, like an onion, peels layers away, revealing everything that's going on. And like with the with them finding out what's up with Susan and finally finding her and getting in the TARDIS and meeting the Doctor. And William Hartnell is just so good at being enigmatic here. I really enjoy him in the story, and in this episode. But I actually enjoy him the other stories as well. I actually enjoy episodes 2, 3, and 4 with the cavemen. I think it's nice for a first story. I don't crap as much on those other episodes as some people do. I think the actors playing the cave people do a fine job of it, actually. I really enjoyed the story. Number 5 on the list is the 10th Planet. I like the 10th Planet, but for me, episodes 3 and 4 don't live up to 1 and 2. Episodes 1 and 2 are really good. Hartnell is just on it here. I'm enjoying everything. I'm enjoying the setup, the build. I love the Cybermen. This is a great introduction to the Cybermen. I love the Cyberman design here. I like it. You can actually see their eyes, and I'm pretty sure they don't blink. That's a neat little touch when you don't see the Cybermen blinking. I love this design. I wish they would bring it back more, because they are truly terrifying in that design. I love some of the Doctor's speeches in this one as well. Episode 3 really suffers from not having Hartnell in it. I know he was ill in real life, and so they had to redistribute his lines to other people, but I think it does hurt the episode. It kind of fits with the canon of the story, with the third Doctor weakening and, his body wearing out. It does actually fit story-wise, I'll give it that. But it does suffer not having him there, and it's very obvious that Hartnell himself is not there for filming. Episode 4, I love Planet 55's animation. They also did the moon base, which is my favorite animation we've had so far. The problem isn't the animation itself. The style is perfect. I love their style of animation. It's some of the camera choices it makes, much like how Reigns has some issues with the camera work in the animated episodes. Some of the camera choices they make here are really odd. I noticed it when I was rewatching it a few months back. Episodes 1, 2, and 3, and then I got to episode 4, and that switch to the way the camera work was done for that episode, that final animated episode, was really wonky, and I found it very jarring, and it put me off just a bit, which is why this ranks a little lower. Still a good story, though, and still beautiful animation. Number 4 on the list is the Daleks. Having just recently rewatched this, it has gone up in my estimates some, especially cutting it a little slack for being the first Dalek story. It really does establish the Daleks pretty well, and I love going back and being able to see the Thals again. It's really frustrating that Doctor Who has kind of dropped the Thals. I always wondered what happened to them. I mean, we know in Planet of the Daleks they got space flight. Maybe they went and left to get away from the Daleks, found another planet. But I hate the fact that modern Doctor Who has never addressed the Thals. I would like to see them come back and find out what happened to them. But it's really neat to see kind of the fallout of this war between two indigenous species on this planet, and how one is still humanoid looking, or they've actually gotten back to being humanoid looking, and the other is the Daleks. It's again, it's a little too long at 7 parts, especially if you try to watch them back to back, which it wasn't designed to be watched that way anyway. But when I watched it, I spaced it out over the course. I can't remember if I spaced it out over the course of 1 day or 2 days, but I did space it out and take breaks in between. Thank goodness. It made it a lot more bearable. And I do think that Susan's not quite as irksome here. She does have some really nice moments, like when she's having to go get the medicine. And the Thals themselves are great. I really like that. And then I like that it shows just how deadly Skaro can be with all the different mutations and stuff running around. Like the one that grabs the guy in the lake. I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I have a higher opinion now of the Daleks than before, but I still think it's on the lower end of Dalek stories. Number 3 is the War Machines. I really like the War Machines. The design of the War Machines is very non-threatening, but using suspension of disbelief, the rest of the story is strong. It's a strong script. Hartnell has some truly great moments in it. Ben and Polly are great. This is their only complete surviving story, and I think Michael and Anna just do a really good job with introducing us to these characters. I really do think of them together. I mean, they come on together, they leave together. I really do think of them as, much like Ian and Barbara, I think of them together. I never think of them individually. You know, if I ever ranked the companions, it'd be really hard to rank them separately, because I just think of them as an item. And Dodo's exit's kind of awful, but I don't really like Dodo anyway for the most part, so that doesn't really bother me. The story is good. I really enjoyed the script. It was a really good watch. Number 2 on the list and number 1 on the list are practically a tie. And I have a feeling just whichever one I watched the most recently would be number one. It's really hard for me to pick between them. And that's The Ark and The Reign of Terror. Just for the purposes of the list, I put The Ark at number 2 and The Reign of Terror at number 1. That's probably because I just watched The Reign of Terror. I love both of these stories. I love The Ark. It's a great four-parter with a wonderful twist at the end of part 2, at the half of the, right there halfway through the story when you see the alteration to the big statue. Wonderful twist. I sometimes think of The Ark as, instead of being one four-parter, as being two two-parters, because it's almost two separate stories that happen to take place on the same place, but in, a very different time, much kind of like The Ark in Space and Revenge of the Cybermen. Both take place on Nerva Beacon, but they're different stories. I think of parts 3 and 4 of The Ark as almost a sequel to parts 1 and 2, and you could have done that. You could have done The Ark as a two-parter, and then had the TARDIS team leave, and done another story or two, and then had them come back for the third and fourth parts and called it Return to the Ark. You could perfectly do it that way, and it would have worked just fine. But I really like the creatures, the Mongoloids or whatever they're called. I really love their design. It really fits that black and white aesthetic of 60s Who, with the one eyeball, which is obviously the person's holding in their mouth, with the wigs. And I like their little communication devices. And I love how they evolve from the story of where they are at the beginning of the story and versus where they are at the end of the story, and just how much they changed. I really, really love The Ark. It really is Doctor Who being Doctor Who. And it really is a nice look at things like, slavery and why slavery is bad and the resentment it can cause. There's actually a lot of political stuff you could see in this episode if you actually examined it. It's a really good story. And then, of course, The Reign of Terror, I put at number 1. I just rewatched this story. I absolutely love it. I think all of the cast here, for the most part, do a good job, even though I still find Susan annoying as God. Ooh. Susan, I just find Susan frustrating as a character. She really is that 60s, help me, help me, help me, oh no, I'm so tired, I can't do it. 60s woman trope that would make modern day people cringe. Luckily, we have Barbara, and Barbara is such a well-written character, especially for the time. I absolutely love Barbara. It's just the voice of reason a lot of times. She's always, all right, Susan, we're going to make a run for it. I can't. All right. We'll find a way to make it work. So Barbara's really great in this. Ian, of course, being the kind of, stereotypical tough man. I'll go handle this. He's great. I like Ian a lot. I like William a lot as an actor. I like Ian a lot as a character. He really is that kind of strong alpha male type that you can't do on TV now for some reason. Just a manly man being a manly man. And then, of course, Hartnell being his kind of grumpy self, but I absolutely love him in this. I love when he gets himself into his own bad situation with the digging camp, when he smarts off to the one guy and the guy makes him dig too, and it's his own fault for opening his mouth. And the satisfaction the Doctor probably gets later when he whacks him with the shovel. I just get the feeling the first Doctor's like, make me dig, will you? I absolutely know the Doctor took some satisfaction from that. Plus, that cliffhanger from episode 1 is really good with the house burning. That is done really well, especially when you realize it's 1964. That is a really, really good Doctor Who cliffhanger. One of the best from the 60s I've seen. Really enjoyed it. And just watching the Doctor when he's impersonating the officer and how he just does it full force. He goes into it. He does a really good job there. And I really like finding out who the guy, James, is that they've been looking for, because I didn't see that coming. Even though I'd seen the story before, I'd forgotten who that was. So I was like, oh, wow, that was him? I smooth forgot that. So, yeah, Reign of Terror is just it could be my favorite pure historical, which I haven't seen a lot of pure historicals. Since Hartnell's era is the one that mostly does them, but it's probably my favorite that I've seen. It's a really, really good story. So that's me ranking the First Doctor stories that I have seen. Looking forward to Galaxy 4 coming out. As most of you know, I've always wanted to see Galaxy 4, so that's going to be a real good treat for me. So hopefully it'll be in, at the time you're seeing this, in a few days. Living in the States, I'm having to wait for it to cross the pond. So hopefully it'll get here. I can watch it and give a review on it. Find out what you guys think. So let me know what you think of these stories I've ranked and how you would rank those 9 stories. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. I am trying to grow the channel. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers now. So if you like what I do, help me out with that. If you haven't subscribed already, I would very much appreciate it. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do and get access to bonus videos, I ranked the doctors recently. That is a patron exclusive. I'm starting to release videos early on Patreon. My review for Reign of Terror, for example, went up considerably earlier, a couple weeks earlier than it did on YouTube. So I will be doing more of that where patrons will get exclusive early access to videos. So if there's anything there that interests you on the different tier list, check that out for me real quick. But most importantly, thank you for watching.